Hello. I'm going to talk a little bit about binaural audio and ordinary audio. Off the cuff, so nothing's written down, so I might say some things which are quite a little bit wrong or whatever, but I might come back to that either in the comments or in the description. I do tend to think about binaural audio an awful lot, probably not quite a healthy thing to do really. I've been doing it for many years. Anyway, so getting to the point, I think that the ear serves a very important purpose. The pinna, or outer ear, because of its shape, creates different tones depending on which way the sound hits the ear. And if you look at your ear, side on or from any angle, when you look at it, it changes shape. Visually, it changes shape because of the angles. Well, those visual changes also happen in the audio spectrum, where a slight angle change will create a slight coloration change or a tonal change to the sound that enters the ear canal, simply because of the angles and folds and parabolic shapes and stuff that are in the ear. Well, a standard microphone just has a diaphragm, and basically the sound hits the diaphragm directly. So in the ear, the sound doesn't go directly to the eardrum because of the pinna, or the ear is in the way. So that's an indirect listening way of hearing the tones. So a binaural microphone is an indirect sound capturing device, whereas a standard microphone is a direct sound capturing device, unless of course it's in a parabolic dish and it's being used for dish and stuff like that. But because of the distances between reflections in the dish and the microphone, it's not really binaural. But anything reflected or indirect and it's bouncing off some other surfaces basically is binaural, because it's got this reflection going on, and that reflection can add a particular type of tone to the sound. So these particular types of tones, you could imagine, which I've been trying to work on, if you had a colour wheel, there's a Munsell colour chart which is to do with paints, and it works quite well with what I'm trying to say in a way that you could see it visually. You've got different colours above you, different colours below you, different colours to your left and right. Well, we call left and right black and white, so there's no colour there. But there's like this gradation, like a rainbow, all around your head, going away from your head and coming towards your head. So every single angle going away from you, coming towards you, going up or down, has got a particular footprint of, should we say earprint of a coloration or tone at that given angle. So if you had a colour chart that mapped your ears, and a particular colour was, say, to the top right, and if you then copied that particular tone at that distance away from your head from the colour chart and replayed it back through headphones, you would perceive that point where it was in the chart. So there's a chart for above, a chart for behind, a chart for below. And they're all slight different colours, variations of colours. So if those colours are unique all around your head, no one colour is the same. So every single colour is a point in space that can be mapped to that. So basically, all the ear does is simply map those colourations so that you have a 360 degree visual, so to speak, because you can focus on any sound outside. If you've got good ears and good hearing, no misshapen ears and stuff like that, if you've got a normal ear shape, then you should be able to determine most of the 360 degrees around you by just pointing at it. If you had your eyes closed and someone made a noise, you'd be able to, it's there, it's so far away, or it's so close, or whatever. You're pretty good at doing stuff like that because we've been doing it for a long time. We've learnt from when we were a kid. So I still think that perhaps it's inherent that you learn to a certain degree about certain sounds, but I can only surmise that because I can't remember what it was like when I was a kid. So, but I do think, rather than the head-related transfer function, which is extremely confusing because it seems to relate to the head, and in essence it really should be called PRTF or ERTF, in my opinion, which refers to the ear. Because if you remove your ears, anything that you would hear would be perceived inside your head. So you need the pinna on your outside of your head to give these colourations of tones to the sounds that you're listening to, so that you perceive it outside your head, where you see me, or you see your friends, or you see the tree or the bird or the ship on the horizon. Those are perceived externally. So nature's incredible in that respect, that these perceptions that we get are external to us. So the ear plays a very vital, important role for making everything external to us. I've been playing about with ChatGPT with this particular concept, and it's coming up to some incredible artworks. They're a little bit not quite right. We've been messing about with like musical note tones, colour wheels, the Munsell charts and stuff like that, and just sort of throwing ideas at ChatGPT just to see what it comes up with. But my first colour wheel with the ear inside it is basically what I'm hoping ChatGPT will come up with in a visual way that sort of represents these grids that surround our heads in this 360 degree sphere, shall we say, and each partition, they could be all in little cubes outside, coming out your head, in this grid. So yeah, I can't really explain that very well, unfortunately. But I can see it in my mind, but I just can't explain it, unfortunately. So yeah, that's my take on binaural audio. And a lot of manufacturers do specify binaural microphones, where in fact they're just standard microphones. It's only when you put them next to your ear that they become binaural in a sense. Not perfect, because the microphones are external to your ear rather than at your ear canal entrance, where it would sound slightly different than if it was on the outside of your head. So there are variations there. They're still very good, but they're not really binaural until they're actually on the ear or in the ear. And there's lots of people that say, oh, this stereo is binaural. Well, it's not really, because binaural are the tones which are added to the sound from the pinna. That's the only difference between binaural and stereo and mono. Mono just has one channel, no binaural information at all. Stereo is just two channels and no binaural information at all. So those are heard internally. And the only way to get external sound is binaurally, or by some digital filtering, and I think there's some clever people out there that have done algorithms so that these binaural plugins, you can get things which seem outside your head. So they must be aware of the colourations, and these colourations of tones given specific angles above and below. Very difficult to do, I think, but left and right, near and far, I think they've got that really quite well. So there are digital plugins that can fudge this coloration tone, but for analogue capturing, then you need a pinna or an ear and a microphone capsule at the ear canal behind the tragus, because some manufacturers don't have the tragus in the correct position, so you're not going to get the sound shadow, which causes slight colorations of the sound in the right place. So they're going to be a little bit skewy. They still work very well, but not as well as if they would be in the correct position. So it's very fascinating for me, this particular subject. Lots of people think that they know about the HRTF, the head related transfer function, and they're very well read, they've had educations about it, but they still seem to find, looking at it from my point of view, very, very difficult. It doesn't seem to make sense to them. I can see why, because they've had years of learning this, I suppose, written in the books. But the head related transfer function is very confusing as far as I'm concerned, because it doesn't really relate to just the ears. Because if we take away the head and just have the ears on a tube, as my own microphone proves that it can work. There are other microphones similar to mine that don't have a head, and they still work very, very well. And the only way you can really, really prove this to yourself or realise how it works yourself is by taking casts of your own ears. So anybody that's sort of, really, really educated and they think they know an awful lot about binaural audio, if they were to take the effort to make some casts of their own ears and make experiments with them, changing the angles of the pinna and then making sure that they're the same angle as they are on their own head and things like that, they would find that there are some things about binaural audio that they weren't aware of, from what I can tell, which is written in the books and stuff about time-related differences and things like that, don't seem to quite work out that way when you work with your own ears. So I do feel that can be very confusing for anyone that's interested in binaural audio, because it doesn't seem to, it's like somebody's tried to explain it in a way without actually understanding exactly how it functions. So they're explaining it very well, but it's all too technical, and it doesn't have to be time differences between here, you don't really need that. It's all down to, of course, this is my opinion, of course, to coloration of the sounds, these particular tones, rather than time differences. If you have the ears close together and then you put them apart over many inches, you can get defocused binaural information. And when I say defocused, I mean, if you've got a pair of ears, which is the clone of your own ears, and they're all set up properly with all the correct angles, if you make a sound right in front of the microphone where it would be right in front of your face, that's where you would perceive it. So if you then change the angle of the ears slightly, then that perception can be lost. You lose focus on that point of reference in that 3D space, because you've just moved the reference points simply by moving the ear slightly. I can't really explain that much better than that, really. But it's a fascinating subject. You can get really engrossed into it, like I do, if you want to, of course. Well, I do want to, because I want to understand it fully. I'd like to find out what the the triangular fossa is for, and the tragus, what part of the spectrum of the coloration tones do they affect? Do they affect what's above you, what's below you, what's to the side of you and stuff like that? So they must have a function. So I've yet to work out what those functions are and map out these little things, because the ears are a bit like faces. They're all slightly different, yet the triangular fossa is in the same place. The tragus is in the same place, like the eyes and the nose and the mouth. They're all sort of variations on a human face, but they're all basically basically in the same place. So the ear is the same, where particular shapes are all more or less in the same place all the time. So if you get somebody else's ear and make a recording of that, then you're going to hear it externally, not quite the way that you would perceive it, but you perceive it externally. So they work quite well. But anyway, yeah, that's just my little bit of a waffle about binaural audio and what I've been doing with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is quite an interesting piece of software. It's coming up with some incredible ideas and stuff, which I find completely fascinating, considering it's just a computer that's coming up with these ideas. Very, very interesting indeed. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. Thanks very much for listening.